An audio leak scandal is exploding across the NFL right now that's threatening to destroy Shedeur Sanders' draft stock, destroy Deion Sanders' credibility, and expose the most toxic father-son dynamic in professional sports history. And according to sources who've heard the full, unedited audio that's being shopped to media outlets by someone with a vendetta against the Sanders family, what's on these recordings is far worse than anything that's been reported publicly so far. The leaked audio allegedly captures private conversations between Deion and Shedeur from the past several months, where they discuss manipulating teams, bad-mouthing coaches and executives, planning to extort organizations for maximum money and control, and making deeply concerning comments about other players and prospects that reveal an arrogance and entitlement that goes beyond anything people suspected. And according to sources who've been briefed on the content, the most damaging audio involves Deion coaching Shedeur on how to sabotage Fernando Mendoza's reputation by spreading false information to scouts, and Shedeur enthusiastically agreeing while laughing about how easy it is to manipulate people who trust them. Deion is now in full damage control mode, defending his son and claiming the audio is either fabricated or taken wildly out of context. But according to sources who've analyzed the recordings, they're authentic and they're devastating. And when they become public in their entirety, they're going to change how the entire NFL views both Deion and Shedeur Sanders forever. The audio leak scandal that's threatening to consume Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders first became known to the public on Friday evening, February 28, 2026, when a prominent NFL insider tweeted cryptically about explosive audio recordings involving a high-profile quarterback prospect and his father that were being shopped to various media outlets. According to sources who've been tracking how this story developed, the tweet didn't name Deion or Shedeur specifically, but given the context and the timing, coming just days after the Cleveland Browns combine chaos and the quarterback evaluation debates, most people in NFL circles immediately understood who was being referenced. Within hours of that initial cryptic tweet, according to sources who monitor NFL media and insider communications, multiple reporters began receiving contacts from someone claiming to have access to extensive audio recordings of private conversations between Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders. According to sources who've spoken with reporters who were contacted, the person shopping the audio described it as career-ending material that would expose the real Deion and Shedeur, and that would prove they've been running a coordinated manipulation campaign to control Shedeur's draft positioning and landing spot. The identity of the person leaking or shopping the audio recordings remains unknown, according to sources who've been investigating. But according to sources familiar with the situation, there are several theories about who might be behind it and what their motivations might be. According to sources, one theory is that the leaker is someone from Kevin Stefanski's camp who's retaliating against the Sanders family for the campaign to destroy Stefanski's career that was revealed in previous reporting. According to sources, another theory is that the leaker is someone from inside one of the NFL teams that Deion and Shedeur burned during negotiations or private workouts, someone who's tired of watching the Sanders family manipulate the process without consequences. And according to sources, a third theory is that the leaker is actually someone from inside Deion's own operation, either a former employee or advisor who had a falling out with Deion and who kept recordings as insurance. The content of the leaked audio recordings, based on what sources who've heard portions of them have described, is extensive and covers conversations spanning several months from late 2025 through early 2026. According to sources, the recordings appear to have been made using a phone or recording device during in-person conversations between Deion and Shedeur, and the audio quality is good enough that both voices are clearly identifiable and that the content is easily understandable. According to sources, the fact that the recordings exist at all suggests either that someone very close to Deion and Shedeur was secretly recording them, or that one of them was recording the conversations themselves for some reason, and that those recordings were then stolen or leaked. The specific content that sources say is most damaging involves several categories of concerning behavior and statements.
According to sources who've been briefed on the recording's contents, one category involves Deion and Shedeur discussing how to manipulate NFL teams during the evaluation and negotiation process. According to sources, there are recordings where Deion coaches Shedeur on what to say during team interviews to give answers that teams want to hear, regardless of whether those answers are honest, where Deion discusses which teams they should play along with versus which teams they should use for leverage, and where both Deion and Shedeur laugh about how easy it is to manipulate team executives who are desperate for a franchise quarterback.
Another category of damaging content, according to sources, involves Deion and Shedeur bad-mouthing coaches, executives, and other people in the NFL in ways that reveal contempt and disrespect that goes far beyond normal competitive criticism. According to sources, there are recordings where Deion calls specific NFL coaches idiots and frauds, where Shedeur dismisses certain teams as poverty franchises that aren't worthy of him, and where both of them make disparaging comments about other quarterback prospects in this draft class, including deeply personal attacks that have nothing to do with football ability. But according to sources familiar with the most explosive portions of the audio, the content that's going to cause the biggest scandal involves Deion coaching Shedeur on how to sabotage Fernando Mendoza's reputation and draft stock. According to sources who've heard this section of the recordings, there's audio from sometime in mid-February 2026 where Deion and Shedeur are discussing Mendoza's rise and the threat it poses to Shedeur's positioning. And according to sources, Deion allegedly tells Shedeur something to the effect of, "We need to plant seeds about this kid. Nothing that can be traced back to us, but if scouts start hearing whispers about character concerns, about work ethic issues, about him being difficult to coach, that stuff sticks. You know people, your teammates know people. Get the message out there." And according to sources, Shedeur's response on the recording is allegedly enthusiastic agreement, with him saying something like, "I got you, I'll make some calls. People trust me. If I say there's concerns about his attitude, they'll believe it. This is easy." According to sources who've heard this exchange, both Deion and Shedeur then laugh about how they're going to destroy Mendoza's reputation without anyone knowing they're behind it. According to sources, if this audio is authentic and if it becomes public, it would constitute clear evidence of a coordinated smear campaign against a fellow prospect, and it would be the kind of behavior that could get both Deion and Shedeur blacklisted from significant portions of the NFL. The authentication of the audio recordings is currently being undertaken by multiple news organizations, according to sources familiar with the verification process. According to sources, at least 3 major sports media outlets have obtained copies of portions of the recordings and have hired forensic audio experts to analyze whether the recordings are genuine or whether they've been fabricated, edited, or manipulated in ways that would change their meaning. According to sources, the preliminary assessments from these audio experts suggest that the recordings appear to be authentic based on voice analysis, background noise consistency, and other technical factors. But the experts are still completing their full analyses before any outlet is willing to publish or broadcast the content. Deion Sanders learned about the existence of the leaked audio sometime on Friday evening, according to sources who've spoken with people in Deion's camp. According to sources, Deion's initial reaction was panic, followed by immediate consultation with attorneys about legal options for preventing the audio from being published. According to sources, Deion's legal team has been sending cease and desist letters to media outlets and to the person or people shopping the audio, threatening legal action for invasion of privacy, defamation, and other potential claims if the recordings are published without Deion's consent. But according to sources familiar with media law and First Amendment protections, Deion's legal threats are unlikely to be effective in preventing publication if major news organizations determine the recordings are newsworthy and authentic. According to sources, while recording someone without their consent can be illegal, depending on the jurisdiction and circumstances, publishing newsworthy recordings that were obtained by a third party is generally protected by the First Amendment, especially when the content involves public figures like Deion and Shedeur, discussing matters of significant public interest like draft manipulation and reputation sabotage. Deion's public defense of Shedeur and his attempt to get ahead of the audio leak scandal began on Saturday morning, February 29, 2026, when Deion posted a lengthy statement on social media and then did several media interviews defending his son and preemptively attacking the credibility of any audio that might be released. According to sources who've analyzed Deion's messaging strategy, he's trying to create a narrative that positions him and Shedeur as victims of a coordinated attack by people who are jealous of their success and who are trying to sabotage Shedeur's career. In his social media statement, according to sources who've read it, Deion wrote, "There are people out there who are so threatened by my son's greatness that they're willing to fabricate lies, doctor recordings, and spread vicious rumors to try to tear him down. They know Shedeur is special, they know he's going to dominate the NFL, and they can't stand it, so they're trying to destroy him before he even gets started. It's disgusting, it's evil, and we're not going to let them get away with it. Anyone who publishes false or manipulated audio pretending to be us will be sued into oblivion." The statement continued, according to sources, "As for the content of any recordings that might exist, let me be clear. Father-son conversations are private. Everyone says things in private that sound different when taken out of context. Everyone vents frustration. Everyone strategizes about how to navigate difficult situations. None of that makes you a bad person. None of that proves anything except that we're human. But our critics don't care about context. They don't care about truth. They just want to destroy us, and that's what this is really about." In his social media interviews on Saturday, according to sources who've watched or listened to them, Deion went further in defending Shedeur and attacking the people behind the audio leak. According to sources, Deion specifically accused Kevin Stefanski of being behind the leak, claiming that Stefanski has been waging a revenge campaign against the Sanders family ever since Cleveland decided to pursue legal action related to Stefanski's alleged defamation of Shedeur. According to sources, Deion also suggested that Fernando Mendoza's camp might be involved in the leak as a way to eliminate their competition for draft positioning, though Deion provided no evidence for that accusation.
The reaction from NFL teams to the emerging audio leak scandal has been cautious and concerned, according to sources who've spoken with executives and scouts. According to sources, teams that were already skeptical of Shedeur Sanders are viewing this scandal as confirmation of their concerns about his character and about the complications that come with drafting him. But according to sources, even teams that were strongly considering Shedeur are now pumping the brakes until they can determine what's actually on these recordings and whether the content is as bad as what's being described. The Cleveland Browns, given their heavily reported connection to Shedeur Sanders through the Deion advisory arrangement and through months of speculation about drafting him, are in a particularly difficult position, according to sources familiar with the organization's internal discussions. According to sources, Andrew Berry and Todd Monken have both told Jimmy Haslam that if the audio recordings are as damaging as what's being reported, the Browns need to completely distance themselves from Shedeur, regardless of previous plans or commitments. According to sources, Haslam has authorized Berry to explore all alternative options, including the Kirk Cousins trade scenario, accelerating talks with Fernando Mendoza's camp, or even trading down entirely to avoid the quarterback position in this draft. The Fernando Mendoza camp's reaction to learning they might be the subject of a smear campaign orchestrated by Deion and Shedeur has been measured but firm, according to sources who've spoken with Mendoza's representatives. According to sources, Mendoza's agent has issued a statement saying that if audio evidence emerges proving that the Sanders family attempted to sabotage Mendoza's reputation through false information, they will pursue all available legal remedies and will cooperate fully with any NFL investigation into the matter.
According to sources, Mendoza's team is also reaching out proactively to NFL teams to reinforce that Mendoza has no character or work ethic concerns, and that any negative information teams might have heard was the result of a deliberate disinformation campaign. The NFL League Office is monitoring the audio leak situation, according to sources familiar with league operations. According to sources, while the league typically doesn't get involved in disputes between players or between players and media, the allegations that Deion and Shedeur might have engaged in a coordinated campaign to sabotage another prospect's draft stock through false information could potentially fall under the league's conduct policies. According to sources, if the audio proves that such a campaign occurred, the league could theoretically investigate and potentially sanction both Deion and Shedeur, though sources emphasize that would be an unusual step and that the league would need very clear evidence of wrongdoing before taking action. The broader implications of this audio leak scandal for how NFL teams approach the draft and how they evaluate character and family dynamics are significant, according to sources who study draft trends. According to sources, teams are already extremely cautious about drafting players with complicated family situations or with parents who try to exert too much control. But according to sources, if the Deion Shedeur audio proves to be as bad as what's being described, it could make teams even more risk-averse and even more likely to avoid prospects whose families are heavily involved in their careers, regardless of the player's talent level. The potential criminal implications of recording private conversations without consent are relevant to this situation, depending on where the recordings were made and who made them, according to sources familiar with wiretapping and recording laws. According to sources, different states have different laws about whether all parties to a conversation must consent to being recorded, or whether only one party needs to consent. According to sources, if the recordings were made in a state that requires all-party consent, and if neither Deion nor Shedeur consented to being recorded, the person who made the recordings could potentially face criminal charges. However, according to sources, that wouldn't necessarily prevent the recordings from being published or used as evidence of other wrongdoing. As of now, Saturday afternoon, February 29, 2026, the audio leak scandal involving Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders continues to grow, with more details emerging about the recording's content, and with multiple news organizations working to authenticate and potentially publish the audio. Deion's defense of Shedeur and his preemptive attacks on the leak's credibility have not stopped the story from spreading, and according to sources, it's only a matter of time before significant portions of the audio become public, at which point the full extent of what Deion and Shedeur said in their private conversations will be available for the NFL world to judge. The next few days will determine whether this scandal permanently damages both of their reputations or whether Deion's narrative about context and manipulation manages to limit the fallout. But one thing is certain, the audio leak has fundamentally changed the dynamics of the 2026 NFL Draft and has put both Deion and Shedeur Sanders in the most precarious position of their careers.